Since the end of World War II and much of the second half of the 20th century, Japan has been known as a prominent industrial power both not just in Asia but also throughout the world. In the last few decades, there has been an effort to create its own homegrown regional jet, the Mitsubishi SpaceJet. Coming from a country not known for making its own commercial aircraft, the SpaceJet is not the first commercial aircraft production attempt Japan has ever undertaken, as more than 5 decades prior, Japan produced the YS-11, the first designed and manufactured commercial aircraft to have come from Japan. Within a decade after Japan's surrender to conclude World War II, Japan saw the start of its homegrown airlines, All Nippon Airways and Japan Airlines. For the most part, these airlines started with DC-3 aircraft built from overseas, specifically North America. But sensing a future and to rebuild its industrial might, the Japanese government began efforts to build its own commercial aircraft manufacturing industry, along with others to boost the Japanese economy. In 1957, these efforts began with the formation of an organization called the Commercial Transport Design Research Association. This attracted some of the large prominent Japanese conglomerates, such as Mitsubishi, Kawasaki, Fuji, and Shinmewa, and together this organization to build a new commercial aircraft would be known as the Nihon Airplane Manufacturing Corporation, or NAMC for short. This organization would have the Japanese government take a 54% majority stake in the company, and with that, the military of Japan, the Japan Self-Defense Force, took note of this project. So the project would have both commercial and military use in the future. And with the military involvement, there would be some prominent figures in the design and development team, who at one point were involved in the wartime effort during World War II. Among the most prominent of these individuals were Jiro Horoshiki, who was the chief engineer of several of the Japanese-made fighter aircraft during World War II, including the famed but notorious Mitsubishi A6M-0. Though the project would be the first undertaking for a commercial aircraft, they set out for the task to develop a 60-seater, twin-engine turboprop aircraft capable of using short runways that can compete with aircraft at the time such as the Vickers Viscount, Fokker F-27, and the Martin 404. While it was a homegrown Japanese project, there was some collaborations with other foreign entities such as Rolls-Royce, which produced the engines for the aircraft, and other features and systems featured on the aircraft were copied based on other aircraft around the world. Eventually, the first prototype of the aircraft would take flight in August of 1962 from Nagoya Airport. As the YS-11 was undergoing test flights, it also was a momentous time in Japan as the 1964 Tokyo Olympics were about to take place. A YS-11 would be used to transport the Olympic flame as part of the torch relay throughout the country. The aircraft would then complete testing and get certified for flight by both the US and Japan for flight by 1965, paving way for the first flights in April of 1965 by Japanese airline Towa Airways. While it was an engineering marvel and a commercial aircraft making success for the Japanese, the business side was not so rosy, as NAMC was not experienced in selling aircraft in other parts of the world. And with the sluggish sales, the company's debt would be estimated to be around $600 million. Eventually, production would end in 1973, following a series of events such as the 1971 Smithsonian Agreement, where global currencies such as the Japanese yen would be pegged to the US dollar. With the appreciating value of the yen, the project was no longer financially feasible. After 9 years of being in production, the company delivered the last YS-11 to the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force in 1973. In all, there were around 182 YS-11s that were produced, with mostly passenger versions, with the cargo versions used by the Japanese military. The 60-seater aircraft had a range of up to 2,000 nautical miles depending on the fuel tanks that were available on the aircraft. Its typical cruise speed was around 450 kilometers an hour, with a service ceiling of over 22,000 feet, and the aircraft was operated by a 2-man crew. As it was a Japanese-made aircraft, the local Japanese carriers such as All Nippon Airways, Japan Airlines, and Towa supported and bought the aircraft. Even though it wasn't a massive success internationally, there were some other foreign carriers that purchased the aircraft such as Korean Air, Olympic Airways in Greece, and US-based Piedmont Airlines, which would operate a total of over 20 of the aircraft in the 1970s. Among the countries that purchased the military variants include the Greek military, though the aircraft was more prominently used by the Japanese military. While production may have ended in the 1970s, the YS-11 would see service with airlines well into the 1990s and 2000s, most notably in the Philippines with Air Philippines and Asian Spirit, and some of the Japanese carriers who continue to use it for some domestic operations. However, after a long tenure of service in the 2000s, airlines began phasing out these aircraft, and this process was accelerated even further in Japan, when the Japanese government required all aircraft operating in the country to have a TCAS, or Traffic Collision Avoidance Systems, on board the aircraft, which would prove costly to outfit the YS-11s with. So the last YS-11 operated by a Japanese carrier made its last flight in 2006 with Japan Air Commuter. Despite being phased out by most airlines, the YS-11 would be used by the Japanese military well into the 2010s as a cargo transport and to test air-based navigation equipment and electronic warfare. While it wasn't a major success as a commercial aircraft that the Japanese would have wanted, it was a source of pride for the Japanese people and the country. And now, in the 21st century, Japan is now making a second attempt at a commercial aircraft manufacturing with the SpaceJet. Among the lessons learned from the YS-11 is having an experienced crew of not just aviation engineers, but also those able and understanding of selling an aircraft, commercial aircraft especially, in the global aviation community, which the SpaceJet seems to be focused on commercial aviation, in a market that is considerably lucrative but also highly competitive with other major aircraft such as Embraer with their E-Jets and Airbus with the A220, competing with Mitsubishi and the SpaceJet. What are your thoughts on the YS-11 and the lessons it provides for the 21st century SpaceJet? If you've ever experienced riding on a YS-11 in any airline around the world, feel free to share it in the comment section below. This has been Flights in Asia, highlighting the news and updates from the aviation and travel scene in the Asia Pacific. If you like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Once again, thank you for watching and have a great day.